Good morning and shalom. Today we are reading Yahu'sha chapter 5. And it came to be when all the sovereigns of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan westward, and all the sovereigns of the Canaanites who were by the sea, heard that Yahu'ah had dried up the waters of the Jordan from before the children of Yashrael, until we had passed over, that their hearts melted. And there was no spirit in them any longer because of the children of Yashrael. And at that time Yahu'ah said to Yahu'sha, "Make knives of flint for yourself and circumcise the sons of Yashrael again the second time." So Yahu'sha made knives of flint for himself and circumcised the sons of Yashrael at the hill of foreskins. And this is why Yahu'sha circumcised them. All the people who came out of Mishrim, who were males, all the men of battle, had died in the wilderness on the way, after they had come out of Mishrim. For all the people who came out had been circumcised, but all the people who were born in the wilderness on the way as they came out of Mishrim had not been circumcised. For the children of Yashrael walked 40 years in the wilderness till all the nation, the men of battle who came out of Mishrim, were consumed, because they did not obey the voice of Yahu'ah, to whom Yahu'ah swore not to show them the land which Yahu'ah had sworn to their fathers, that he would give us a land flowing with milk and honey. And Yahu'sha circumcised their sons, whom he raised up in their place, for they were uncircumcised, because they had not been circumcised on the way. And it came to be, when they had completed circumcising all the nation, that they stayed in their places in the camp till they were healed. And Yahu'ah said to Yahu'sha, "Today I have rolled away the reproach of Mishrim from you." So the name of the place is called Gilgal to this day. And the children of Yashrael camped in Gilgal and performed the Passah on the 14th day of the new month at evening on the desert plains of Yarrow. And they ate of the stored grain of the land on the morrow after the Passah, unleavened bread and roasted grain on the same day. And the manna ceased on the day after they had eaten the stored grain of the land. And the children of Yashrael no longer had manna, but they ate the food of the land of Canaan that year. And it came to be, when Yahu'sha was by Yarrow, that he lifted his eyes and looked and saw a man standing opposite him, with his sword drawn in his hand. And Yahu'sha went to him and said to him, "Are you for us or for our adversaries?" And he said, "No, for I have now come as captain of the host of Yahu'ah." And Yahu'sha fell on his face to the earth and did obeisance, and said to him, "What is my master saying to his servant?" And the captain of the host of Yahu'ah said to Yahu'sha, "Take your sandal off your foot, for the place where you stand is set apart." And Yahu'sha did so. Chapter 6. And Yarrow was shut up tight because of the presence of the sons of Yashrael. None going out, none coming in. And Yahu'ah said to Yahu'sha, "See, I have given Yarrow and its sovereign, mighty brave men into your hand. And you should go around the city, all the men of battle going around the city once. Do this for 6 days. And let 7 priests bear 7 shofart of the Yoblim before the ark. And on the 7th day go around the city 7 times while the priests blow the shofar. And it shall be when they make a long blast with the horn of a yobal, and when you hear the voice of the shofar, that all the people shout with a great sound, and the wall of the city shall fall down flat, and the people shall go up, every man straight before him. And Yahu'sha son of Nun called the priests and said to them, Take up the ark of the covenant, and let 7 priests bear 7 shofar of Yoblim before the ark of Yahu'ah. And he said to the people, Pass over and go around the city, and let him who is armed pass over before the ark of Yahu'ah. And it came to be, when Yahu'sha had spoken to the people, that the 7 priests bearing the 7 shofar of the Yoblim before Yahu'ah passed over and blew with the shofar, and the ark of the covenant of Yahu'ah went after them. And the armed men went before the priest who blew the shofar, and the rear guard came after the ark, going on and blowing with the shofar. But Yahu'sha had commanded the people, saying, Do not make a sound or cause your voice to be heard, nor let any word come out of your mouth until the day I say to you, Shout. Then you shall shout. And the ark of Yahu'ah went around the city, going around once. And they came into the camp and stayed in the camp. And Yahu'sha rose early in the morning, and the priests took up the ark of Yahu'ah. And 7 priests bearing 7 shofot of Yoblim before the ark of Yahu'ah were walking, going on, and they blew with the shofar, and the armed men went before them. But the rear guard came after the ark of Yahu'ah, going on and blowing with the shofar. And the second day they went around the city once and returned to the camp. Thus they did 6 days. And it came to be on the 7th day that they rose early about the dawning of the day, and went around the city 7 times in this way. Only on that day they went around the city 7 times. And it came to be at the 7th time, when the priest blew the shofar, that Yahu'sha said to the people, Shout! For Yahu'ah has given you the city. And the city shall be put under the bond, and all that is in it belongs to Yahu'ah. Only Rahab, the whore, is to live, she and all who are with her in the house, because she hid the messengers that we sent. And you, by all means, guard yourselves from which is under the bond, lest you come under the bond when you take of that which is under the bond, and make the camp of Yisrael a curse, and shall trouble it. But all the silver and gold and vessels of bronze and iron are set apart to Yahu'ah. They go into the treasury of Yahu'ah. And the people shouted when the priest blew the shofar. And it came to be, when the people heard the voice of the shofar, and the people shouted with a great shout, that the wall fell down flat. And the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they captured the city. And they put under the bond all that was in the city, both man and woman, young and old, and ox and sheep and donkey, with the edge of the sword. And to the 2 men who had spied out the land of Yahu'sha said, Go into the house of the woman, the whore, and from there bring out the woman and all that she has, as you swore to her. And the young men, that the spies, went in and brought out Rahab, and her father, and her mother, and her brothers, and all that she had. So they brought out all her relatives, and set them outside the camp of Yisrael. And they burned the city and all that was in it with fire. Only the silver and gold and the vessels of bronze and iron they put into the treasury of the house of Yahu'ah. However, Yahu'sha kept alive Rahab the whore and her father's household, and all that she had. And she dwelt in the midst of Yisrael to this day, because she hid the messengers whom Yahu'sha sent to spy out Jethro. And Yahu'sha warned them at that time, saying, Cursed is the man before Yahuwah who rises up and builds this city Yarrow. He lays its foundation with his firstborn, and with his youngest he sets up his gates. And Yahuwah was with Yahu'sha, and a report about him was in all the land. Chapter 7. But when the children of Yashrael committed a trespass regarding that which is under the bond, for Achan, son of Carmi, son of Zabdi, son of Zerah, of the tribe of Yehudah, took of that which is under the bond, and the displeasure of Yahuwah burned against the children of Yashrael. Now Yahu'sha sent men from Yarrow to Ai, which is beside Baeth Awen, on the east side of Baeth El, and spoke to them, saying, Go up and spy out the land. And the men went up and spied out Ai. And they returned to Yahu'sha and said to him, Let not all the people go up, but let about 2,000 or 3,000 men go up and strike Ai. Do not make all the people toil up there, for the people of Ai are few. And about 3,000 men went up there from the people, and they fled before the men of Ai. But the men of Ai struck about 36 men, for they pursued them from before the gate as far as Shebarim, and smote them on the descent. So the hearts of the people melted and became like water. And Yahu'sha tore his garments and fell to the earth on his face before the ark of Yahuwah until evening, both he and the elders of Yashrael, and they put dust on their heads. And Yahu'sha said, O Master Yahuwah, why have you brought this people over the Jordan at all to give us into the hand of the Amorites to destroy us? If only we had been content to stay beyond the Jordan. O Yahuwah, what do I say when Yashrael turns its back before its enemies? And the Canaanites and all the inhabitants of the land hear, and shall surround us and cut off our name from the earth. What then do you do for your great name? And Yahuwah said to Yahu'sha, Rise up, why are you lying on your face? Yashrael has sinned, and they have also transgressed my covenant which I commanded them. And they have even taken some of that which is under the bond, and have both stolen and deceived, and also put it among their own goods. And the sons of Yashrael shall not be able to stand before their enemies. They are going to turn their backs before their enemies, for they have become accursed. I am not with you any more, unless you destroy that which is under the bond from your midst. Rise up, set the people apart, and you shall say, Set yourselves apart for tomorrow, because thus said Yahuwah, Eluah of Yashrael, that which is under the bond is in your midst, O Yashrael. You are not able to stand before your enemies until you put away that which is under the bond out of your midst. And you shall be brought near in the morning according to your tribes, and it shall be the tribe which Yahuwah takes comes according to the clans, and the clan which Yahuwah takes comes by households, and the household which Yahuwah takes comes by men. And it shall be that he who is taken with that which is under the bond is burned with fire, he and all that he has, because he has transgressed the covenant of Yahuwah, and because he has committed wickedness in Yashrael. So Yahu'sha arose early in the morning and brought Yashrael to their tribes, and the tribe of Yehudah was taken. And he brought the clan of Yehudah, and he took the clan of the Zarites, and he brought the clan of the Zarites by men, and Zabdi was taken. And he brought his household by men, and Achan, son of Zarmi, son of Zabdi, son of Zerah, of the tribe of Yehudah, was taken. Then Yahu'sha said to Achan, My son, now give esteem to Yahuwah, Eluah of Yashrael, and make confession to him. and please declare to me what you have done. Do not hide it from me." So Achan answered Yahu'sha and said, "Truly I have sinned against Yahu'ah, Eluah of Yashrael, and this is what I did. When I saw among the spoil a lovely garment from Shinar, and 200 shekels of silver, and a wedge of gold weighing 50 shekels, I coveted them and took them. And see, they are hidden in the ground in the midst of my tent, with the silver under it." And Yahu'sha sent messengers, and they ran to the tent, and see, it was hidden in his tent with the silver under it. And they took them from the midst of the tent, brought them to Yahu'sha and to all the children of Yashrael, and laid them out before Yahu'ah. Then Yahu'sha and all Yashrael with him took Achan son of Zerah, and the silver, and the garment, and the wedge of gold, and his sons, and his daughters, and his ox, and his donkeys, and his sheep, and his tent, and all that he had, and they brought them to the valley of Achor. And Yahu'sha said, "Why have you troubled us? Yahu'ah does trouble you today." Then all Yashrael stoned him with stones, and they burned them with fire. And after they had stoned them with stones, and they raised over him a great heap of stones, which remains to this day. Then Yahu'ah turned from their fierceness of his displeasure. Therefore the name of that place has been called the Valley of Achor to this day. Chapter 8. And Yahu'ah said to Yahu'sha, "Do not be afraid, nor be discouraged. Take all the soldiers with you, and arise, go up to Ai. See, I have given into your hand the sovereign of Ai, and his people, and his city, and his land. And you shall do to Ai and its sovereigns as you did to Yarrow and its sovereign. Only its spoil and its livestock you take as plunder for yourselves. Set for yourselves an ambush for the city behind it." And Yahu'sha and all the soldiers rose up to go up to Ai. And Yahu'sha chose 30,000 mighty brave men and sent them away by night, and commanded them, saying, "See, you are among to lie in ambush against the city behind the city. Do not go very far from the city, but all of you shall be prepared, while I and all the people who are with me approach the city. And it shall be, when they come out against us, as formerly, that we shall flee before them. And they shall come out after us till we have drawn them from the city, as though saying, They are fleeing before us as formerly, and we shall flee before them. Then you shall rise up from the ambush and seize the city, and Yahu'ah your Lord shall give it to you in your hand. And it shall be, when you capture the city, that you burn the city with fire. Do according to the word of Yahu'ah. See, I have commanded you." And Yahu'sha sent them out, and they went to lie in ambush, and stayed between Beth El and Ai, and on the west side of Ai. But Yahu'sha stayed that night in the midst of the people. And Yahu'sha rose up early in the morning, and inspected the people, and went up, he and the elders of Yashrael, before the people of Ai. And all the soldiers who were with him went up and drew near, and came before the city, and camped on the north side of Ai, with the valley between them and Ai. And he took about 5,000 men, and set them in ambush between Beth El and Ai, and on the west side of the city. So they stationed the people, all the army that was on the north of the cities, and its rear guard on the west of the city. And Yahu'sha went that night into the midst of the valley. And it came to be, when the sovereign of Ai saw it, that the men of the city hastened and rose up early, and went out against Yashrael to battle, he and all his people, at the appointed place before the desert plain. But he did not know that there was an ambush against him behind the city. And Yahu'sha and all Yashrael let themselves be beaten before them, and fled by the way of the wilderness. And all the people who were in Ai were called together to pursue them. And they pursued Yahu'sha, and were drawn away from the city. So there was not a man left in Ai or Beth El who did not go after Yashrael, and they left the city open and pursued Yashrael. And Yahu'ah said to Yahu'sha, Stretch out the spear that is in your hand toward I, for I give it into your hand. And Yahu'sha stretched out the spear he had in his hand toward the city. And the ambush rose up quickly from their place, and they ran at the stretching out of his hand, and entered the city and took it, and hastened to burn the city with fire. And the men of Ai looked behind them and saw the smoke of the city rising to the Shemaim. And there was no power in them to flee this way or that way, for the people who had fled to the wilderness turned back on the pursuers. For when Yahu'sha and all Yashrael saw that the ambush had captured the city, and the smoke of the city went up, they turned back and struck the men of Ai. The others also came out of the city against them, so they were in the midst of Yashrael, some on this side, some on that side, and they struck them until none were left, and none had escaped. But the sovereign of Ai they caught alive and brought him to Yahu'sha. And it came to be, when Yashrael ended killing all the inhabitants of Ai in the field, in the wilderness they were pursued, where they had pursued them. And when they all had fallen by the edge of the sword until they were consumed, that all Yashrael turned to Ai and struck it with the edge of the sword. And it came to be that all who fell that day, both men and women, were 12,000, all men of Ai. And Yahu'sha did not draw back his hand, with which he stretched out the spear, until he had put all the inhabitants of Ai under the bond. Only the livestock and the spoil of that city Yashrael took as booty from themselves, according to the word of Yahu'ah which he had commanded Yahu'sha. And Yahu'sha burned Ai and made it a heap forever, a ruin to this day. And he hanged the sovereign of Ai on a tree until evening. And at sunset Yahu'sha commanded that they should take his corpse down from the tree and throw it at the entrance of the gate of the city, and raise it a great heap of stones to this day. And Yahu'sha built a slaughter place to Yahu'ah, a luah of Yashrael, in the mount of Ebal. And Masha, the servant of Yahu'ah, had commanded the children of Yashrael, as it is written in the book of the Torah of Masha, a slaughter place of unhewn stones, over which no man has wielded iron. And they offered on it ascending offerings to Yahu'ah and slaughtered peace offerings. And there, in the presence of the children of Yashrael, he wrote all the stones a copy of the Torah of Masha, which he had written. And all Yashrael, the sojourner as well as the native, with their elders and officers and judges, stood on either side of the ark before the priests, the Levites, who bore the ark of the covenant of Yahu'ah. Half of them were in front of Mount Gerizim, and the other half of them in the Mount of Abel, as Masha, the servant of Yahu'ah, had commanded before, that they should baruch the people of Yashrael. And afterward he read all the words of the Torah, the baruching and the curses, according to all that is written in the book of the Torah. There was not a word of all that Masha had commanded which Yahu'sha did not read before all the assembly of Yashrael, with the women and the little ones and the sojourners who accompanied them.